my morals as a man. I will not go to another man's house to cause violence. It's a bit embarrassing talking about it, to be honest with you, but I just want to be truthful with you. I tried tablets, you know, and cocaine and what have you. This is the bit that I think is a bit sneaky with the tax. They had already organised for me to be going to a bankruptcy court. Yeah, they were. Right, guys, welcome to episode 6. This is what the plan with this whole thing was. People ask me questions all the time in the comments, and then if I answer them in the comments, which takes me forever to type things out, and then only maybe 1 or 2 people read the answer, so not everyone benefits. So I thought we'd do a little weekly thing like this, and then it's sort of expanded a little bit, and it seems to be going quite well. People have been asking me not just plastering questions, but more personal questions, so we've been doing that as well. So for anyone that wants to ask me plastering questions, great, now is your opportunity. And also we can delve a little bit more into, like, you know, me as a person, which don't dig too deep, you might not like what you find. But anyway, it's Sunday. I'm in me crap because I've been working today. It was my wife's birthday yesterday, so I had that off with her and the kids. Today I've had to sort of catch up with a little job. It's funny, actually. Today I was working for Dr. Tom, a GP, and I'll tell you more about Tom at the end of the video. But we might be doing something with Tom. We might be able to pick his brains. We'll just see how things pan out. But there's, you know, we've set the wheels in motion. We'll just see how it goes. But I'll tell you more about that later. So anyway, without further ado, let's just get cracking straight away into the first question. Okay, Paul Bryan said, do you dye your beard? Got some beard envy going on here. No, sorry, mate. I think there is. I mean, there is 1 or 2 greys in there somewhere, mate. I'm not that vain. Listen, my little brother, right, he's going grey and he's receding. I'm receding a little tiny bit, but I think I've just got like superior genetics or something, because I've got hardly any grey hairs whatsoever, and I'm not losing my hair. And I'll tell you another thing as well, I don't suffer with dry skin. The plaster doesn't dry my hands out. I can get it in my eyes and just wipe it back out and fine the next day. I mean, some fellas got splits and cracks and they get it in their eye and they can't see for a week, and I don't know what it is, mate. But no, there's no greys in there, but I don't dye it either. I mean, flipping, look at the state of me, mate. Do I look like I care about my appearance that much? Okay, Alistair Booth. Kirk, where's your local? I'm on the Whittle. Would be a right laugh to come and have a couple of pints with you. Right, if any of you wanted to come and hunt me down and find me, I go after work and usually nip into Ellesmere Port Labour Club. It's a cosy little social club, you know. It's I don't go there because I vote Labour. I don't even get involved in politics whatsoever. I just like going somewhere nice and chilled and quiet after work, you know. There's no lunatics in there. There's no idiots or gangsters or any of that nonsense. Lads go in the toilets 3 at a time and all that caper. It's nice and relaxed. You can have a game of snooker, nice quality beer, fair price, and you can have a good conversation as well. Some of the old boys in there, you know, the flipping salt of the earth. Ian Hadders has basically asked, is there any vices or addictions that you've had, like drink, gambling, drugs, women? First one, let's talk about women. I think women are a problem for every man. Well, unless you bat for the other team, that is, like, but I'd say, you know, good 99% of men have had issues with women at some point in their life. So, yeah, I mean, when I was younger, I did me fair share of flipping messing around, and then obviously you get, you know, I met my missus and settled down, you get married, and then God has a funny way of paying you back, doesn't he, by giving these fellas daughters, and I had 3 of them, so I've learned my lesson now, like flipping heck. Yeah, next one, let's see, drugs. Right, look, I'm a man of the world, I've been around, I grew up on council estates, I've flipping, fortunately for me, from the get-go, the age of, like, you know, just as I was last couple of years of primary school, my old man sent me boxing, and I loved the sport, so I didn't want to do anything to sort of hinder me, like smoking, or, you know, when a lot of the lads were smoking weed and stuff around the estate, I just steered well clear of all that because I didn't want it to affect me, my capabilities in the ring. So I didn't really do any drugs whatsoever until I sort of packed all that in when I started working full time on site. I was like, you know, I left school when I was 15. 16, say. 16, I was getting served in pubs at the age of 16 anyway. I went a little bit off the radar, went a little bit mad, you know. Not going to lie to you. I dabbled with all sorts of different things, you know, Charlie and all, you know, I'm not advocating none of this, and it's a bit embarrassing talking about it, to be honest with you, but I just want to be truthful with you. I tried tablets, you know, and cocaine and what have you. Went a bit crazy for a year or two and then hit ground with a bump. And yeah, to be honest with you, drugs sort of like disgust me now. Even the thought of going down that, you know, route just, ugh, no, it's not for me. Been there, done that. I know all the signs. I know what to look out for in my kids if they ever tried any of that nonsense. But no. Alcohol. Oh, yeah, the demon drink. Flipping heck. I wouldn't say I battle a drink because I like to keep in control of it, but I do like a drink. But I sort of know myself if I'm drinking too much, you know, and I'll nip myself in the bud. I'll just go dry for a couple of months, won't touch a drop, and it kills me for the first week or two. But yeah, gambling. No, I'll have the odd little flutter on a fruit machine. Never really been one to go to the bookies and bet and what have you. Drop a few quid in the fruit machine from time to time in the pub. I have a £20 limit. I'll put 20 quid in and that's it, walk away. At the end of that, if that 20 quid's gone, I've gone. If I win, then I don't mind gambling the winnings, but I will not put more than £20 of my own money in the fruit machine. That might be too much for some people. You might just want to limit yourself to a fiver, or if you've got no control, just stay well away. One time I did get into the online gambling and I had a load of money in the bank, had a few quid, and I'd had a few beers, and I thought, you know what, sod it. And I went flipping crazy. I was doing like £50 spins and all sorts of crazy stuff. Anyway, got myself through about 1,100 quid in one night, which, to be fair, I didn't really, I still don't care about it. It wasn't like I'd really upset myself. I sort of had it in my head that money was for me to, you know, have a bit of fun with anyway. I'd worked hard, flat out, so I had this money sort of set aside for me to blow. The missus and kids were looked after with other things. But I did feel a bit depressed about that the next day when I woke up, because I thought that was flipping stupid. And they actually phoned me up. The gambling people phoned me up and said, we noticed some unusual activity on your account, Kirk. You know, what's gone on here, like? And then they said, do you want us to put you on a little ban? So I thought, yeah, sod it, you know, feeling sorry for myself. Yeah, ban me. Well, I didn't realise that when these people phone you and they do put a little ban on you, you're banned from every single online site. You just cannot log on to any site from your phone, which actually did me a favour, because that was on for a year. And yeah, I just don't even bother them no more. So, but I wouldn't say I've got like an addiction to it, you know. I've got an addictive personality. But I've never nothing's ever really gone out of control for me, to be honest with you. I've never really slipped off the slope and not been able to sort of get back up again. But I'm aware of myself, you know, if I'm doing something a little bit too much, I'm aware. And just nip it in the bud, you know. Okay, Benson has said, what is your opinion on sponge floating skim? Benson, I've tried it. There's benefits to it. I don't personally do it. Here's the top and tail of it for me. It's an extra process that I don't need to do. If you're learning to plaster, I wouldn't recommend doing it, because you're going to be stuck with an extra process that you're going to have to do if you get used to doing it. If you're a DIYer, you're doing a one-off sort of plastering job, you're never going to be a plasterer, then yeah, it'll benefit you because it makes it easier to trowel up. If you get into the plastering game and you want to be a plasterer, it's going to slow you down because it's an extra thing that you've got to do every single mix. So I would prefer that you can plaster without sponging it. But like I said, if you're only doing a one-off job, you're just plastering your own bedroom and that's it, you're going to go back to being a firefighter for the rest of the week or whatever you do, you know, you work in Asda or whatever, then yeah, sponge floating will make your life a little bit easier. Do it earlier on in the mix. The later you do it, the weaker the stuff's going to be, and when you trowel up, it'll be powdery and dusty. So, okay, Don has asked, when buying a new plastering trowel, is it bad if there is a tiny bend away from the handle or on one side of the blade? I recently bought a trowel, not sure whether to return it or just order another before sinking time into it. Cheers, Kirk. Right, I haven't got a trowel to hand. The only thing I could just grab out the workshop quick was this scraper for monocouche. So your trowel, when you hold the handle, this part of the trowel should touch the wall first, and your corners should be curling in towards the handle. Yeah, so it should be curled that way. If it's curling the other way and the corners touch the wall first, then the trowel is bent the wrong way. If that's the case, here's the thing now. We've already been through this in a different video. I personally like to tap the spine with a hammer, yeah? It's only aluminium alloy, so it just takes a little dink and it'll actually curl the opposite way and get a bend out your trowel. Now, I had loads of people going, no, don't do that, don't do that. Another way of doing it, which I don't like, that's why I didn't recommend doing it, is to tap the spine and sort of chop into it with a trowel, a gauging trowel, or another plastering trowel. And what it does is the soft aluminium alloy spine is sort of wedged down deeper into the blade of the trowel, which pushes the bend out of it and pushes it the other way. The reason I don't like that and the reason I don't recommend that is because the trowel is riveted to the spine, and what you're doing is forcing metal down to prise them rivets away from the spine. So I personally have done this in the past, and I've popped more rivets doing it that way than by belting it on the spine a little bit, dink, and curving it the other way, because I'm not separating the spine from the blade. So I would recommend tapping it with a hammer, but there's going to be about a million guys on here recommending that you chop down into between the spine and the blade and you can get the bend out. I would try that first, and if you can't get the bend out, then just go and buy another trowel. But I can't see why you wouldn't be able to do it, you know. Right. Funny, innit? The thing with plastering is there's always 10 ways of doing something, and I say one way, and then loads of people come on and start going, yeah, you can do this, you can do this. So look, you do whatever you want if you know better. I'm just telling you the way I'd do it. I like to give it a little dink with a hammer on a piece of wood, put it on a scaffolding plank, dink, done, fixes the problem. Sometimes you have to, if you can't get underneath the handle, put a little, get a cold chisel, a nice long cold chisel, and use that instead, dink, onto the spine, not the blade, okay. Don't shout at me, all the people that don't like doing that though, flipping heck. Right, Chris Hatfield. Hi Kurt, my house is 1967 build. I'm going to have a go at plastering my bedroom. I've removed all the wallpaper and there's lots of cracks, some bigger than others, where it's not hollow. Can I just scrim tape the cracks, and where the hollow bits are, just take them out and put bonding in, or would it need to be hard wall? Right, so you don't mind the way I sort of like paraphrase some of the questions. It's just to try and condense them a little bit, so I can read them, just trying to squash them down a little bit, but keep the main points that you want. So the reason you've got cracks all over the walls is because the plasterers originally would have plastered over the sand and cement when it was still too green, which means that once they've skimmed it, the sand and cement hadn't fully cured, so it's still shrank and cured a little bit more after the finishing was set, which means that you get these little hairline cracks all over, but the wall still feels solid. So you can just skim them. Better to scrim them, but you can just skim them as long as the wall's solid. Yeah, take the hollow bits out. Bonding will be fine. Bonding is designed for low suction backgrounds like plasterboard and sealed walls. Hard wall is designed for bare brick, things like that. So bonding will be fine. Hard wall will be better, but you can use bonding. Just seal inside the hole first. The sand and cement, someone else asked me a question on this as well, so I'll just cover it quickly. The sand and cement where it's shrunk and cracked all over. If you're worried about that, you can scrim it. Another way to do it is to use rendering mesh, which is basically scrim just on big rolls, and it's not self-adhesive. It's nothing. Some people think they've reinvented the wheel because they're putting mesh in plaster. I mean, you're just putting scrim in plaster. Plasterers have done that for years and years, so you can do that. It's quite fine to do it. It's not a new way. It's nothing, that's going to be dodgy or not normal. It's quite a fine way of doing it. Just mesh the whole wall if you're worried about the cracks. So anything else? Yeah, if you take any of the finishing plaster off and you've just got sort of the old cement work and it's dusty, then put some stabilising solution on first and then seal it with your PVA, your SPR or whatever, and then you're good to go from there, mate. Okay, Chris Swan, how big of a job of rough cast would you do by yourself, wet and dry dash? Okay, so wet and dry dash, two completely different beasts, in my opinion. I find wet dash a lot easier because you haven't got to deal with dry joints and stuff. So I would quite happily just carry on wet dashing all day. I'd have someone mixing for me and sort of cleaning and fetching and carrying, but I'd be quite content to just do a whole house of wet dash by myself, with just sort of like the apprentice, you know, sort of keeping me going. Dry dash, I would say I put on, you know, like a little extension if they're just, you know, just single stories. If I was going to do the top of a house or something, say the top wall or something like that. But when you start dropping on full sides and you're on a couple of different levels on scaffolding, it's just too much mither to be spreading and flicking stones and stuff. I'm not saying it's not possible. You know, if you work in bands, then it's doable, but it's not enjoyable. I'd rather have, you know, 2 or 3 of us on the job. So, yeah, I'd comfortably do like one sort of level, but I wouldn't want to really be doing more than that by myself with a lad, with an apprentice. And I definitely wouldn't want to do it by myself completely on my own. I mean, again, it's possible, but why anyone would want to do that, I don't know, when you can just sort of get someone to help you, you know, for a couple of quid. So, yeah, any big walls, definitely I want at least 2 plasterers on it and someone mixing and fetching stuff for us. Okay, Paul and Tony have both asked the same sort of question. Have you ever been ripped off or not been paid off a job? Okay, Marcus has said, Kirk,
right, yes,
if it's too personal, I understand, but what is the story with the taxman you touched upon in another video?
In whole life, so I don't feel like I'm doing too bad. You know, I've been doing private work for, oh no, actually no, 3 times. 3 times I've been ripped. And I've been plastering since I was 15 years old. I'm 36 now, so 3 times. I would say that's not a bad record, you know. I would say this. Usually, customers aren't that hard-faced that they won't pay, like they've set out to sort of get you in to rip you off. So usually, I would say, if you don't get paid, it's usually because you've done something rough or the customer isn't happy with it. So I'm talking about other plasterers now, so I've had problems on my jobs in the past and we just go back and fix them, you know. That's usually why someone will hold money back if they're not happy with something. So just go and fix it. I mean, for the bit of money it costs you, you're better off fixing it. I would rather every customer say about me, oh yeah, lovely fella, did a cracking job. There was a little issue we had, something didn't work or whatever. We weren't happy with something and he comes straight back and fixed it. What a lovely chap, you know. That's what I'd rather. But there's always the exception. There are 3 times I've been sort of diddled. One was by a plastering firm in Birkenhead. They were doing a job in Birkenhead. It was subbies, you know. Basically, it was at Christmas time. I'd gone in, young lads. I mean, I was about flipping out. Must have been 18, 19 at the time or something. Me and 3 of us went in. We boarded a flat out. In the flour mills it was, boarded it out, goes off for Christmas, comes back after Christmas, and there's someone else in our flat skimming it, and I phoned him up, said, what's the deal here? There's someone in our flat skimming the job that we've put up, so, you know, we weren't paying for the boarding. And basically the fellow on the phone, who had never met, was giving it all the boarding wasn't right, we had to take it down, you hadn't put enough screws in it, it sagged. I mean, look, I know what I do. We don't leave rough work. The job was mint. They just basically took the mick because we were young lads. So, I mean, I worked out what they owed us. They had a container on site with their bits and bobs in there, you know, the company, all the transformers, leads and all that sort of stuff. So I got paid. You know what I'm saying, don't you? They didn't have me off. They were phoning me up saying, have you picked up a few of our bits by mistake? No, mate, no. Same as my boarding wasn't wrong, guy. Yeah, I got paid. That was one time. Another time. Oh, right. I'll tell you the story first. So I've gone to do a job. The customer, nice enough fella, bit of a toff. You know, when you're working for the upper class, you know, one of these sort of guys. Data analyst for an insurance company and all this. Like, you know, his wife's a pharmacist, what have you. Gone to do a job for him. He wanted some radiator pipes sinking into the walls in his living room. sink them in, and then obviously plaster over them. So I've given him a price to cut the channels out where the pipes can go, cut them out sort of behind the pipes. Then he's to get his plumber to come in, put them into the wall where they need to be. I'm going to plasterboard over them because I don't like bedding them in because they always crack. So they're going to be chopped into the brickwork. Plasterboard over the front of the gap so they're in a nice little void so they can expand and contract. And the plasterboard is going to be so wide so that the joints of the board where it joins the old walls are going to be away from the heat, scrimmed. You get the deal. So that was the plan. I've gone in and done the first part of the job. He struggled getting a plumber, couldn't get a plumber to come back. So in the end, he said to me, do I know any plumbers? And this is where it all started going out of control. So I've said, yeah, I've got him a plumber. Now, this plumber I've got, in the world, I know thousands of people, but I've got 3 mates. 3 people, a very small circle I've got, and these 3 people I'd die for. So it literally means that this plumber is a very good friend of mine. So money means nothing between me and him. Money is not a thing, you know. So the job didn't affect our friendship, but I'll just tell you how it panned out. The plumber's gone in. Now, the customer said, can you sort the plumber and put him on your invoice so it's all just nice and neat for me? I don't know if I was being led. Anyway, the plumber goes in, he does his pipe work. The carpet that is in the living room is about 20 years old, and where they've been burning gloss off the skirting boards, they've singed right around the edge of it, right? But it's dust sheeted. The customers have dust sheeted it for us. I don't know why we turned up, but it was all dust sheeted. So the plumber's gone in, done his bit, he's put his blowtorch down, and the tip of his blowtorch has singed a little bit of the carpet. I've gone back and done the plastering and finished the plastering, and once that's done, the plumber did tell me about the singed carpet, but I said, don't worry about it. I think the carpet's going because it's all singed around the edges. But fair play to the plumber, he told the customer. So I've gone back in, done the plastering, and then the customer said, oh, there's a singe in the carpet. I said, oh, no. He said, the plumber has told me. I said, yeah, he told me as well. He said, what can we do about it? So I said, well, I thought, to be honest with you, the way it's all singed around the edges, that chances are the carpet might be going. Well, guess what? No, it's actually staying. Right, okay. We said, look, go and get yourself a new carpet and we'll knock it off the price of the job. So I won't bore you with it. Long story short, customer goes out, buys himself a couple of £1,000 worth of carpet. Not, you know, I've carpeted my whole house for 1,500 quid or something. This fella's going to spend 2,000 quid on a carpet, which is more than what the job was worth. So that was basically it. There was no money left in the job. My insurance doesn't cover me for blowtorches, and the plumber didn't have insurance, so we didn't get paid basically. Yeah. Plumber, to be fair to him, very good friend of mine, he wanted to pay for the carpet because he didn't think it was fair me not getting paid, but I also didn't think it was fair on him, so basically he didn't get paid and I didn't get paid, and that was the end of it. Third time. What was the third? The third thing, right. Years ago, my gut instinct said to me, swerve this job. Travelling man asked me to plaster his house for him. Little bit of patchwork. Told me he couldn't get anyone to do the job. Couldn't get no one to help him. Couldn't get no one to come and do the job for him. Could I fit him in? So I've always been, you know, don't judge people. Take each person as you find them. He was nice and polite. I went and did the job for him. The job went fine. He paid me. He gave me a tip. And we went for a few pints. Great. By the way, travellers, get him in the pub. They've got the best sense of humour going. He's a great laugh. So we did that. A couple of months later, again, another little patching job. Anyway, I ended up plastering his whole house. He bought another house, whole house plastered. I did jobs at his mum and dad's house. I did jobs at his mother and father-in-law's house. Every single time I'm getting paid. I'm getting food bought for me, you know. I didn't want tips and stuff, but they'd always insist on giving you the £5 for the pint and all this sort of thing. Yeah, great. sort of genuinely started to warm to these people. You know, I like the traveller sort of, the way they look after the family and that sort of stuff, you know. Bit of admiration for that. Anyway, I got to a point where I started seeing this fella as a bit of a friend, you know. And this is what hurts. It more hurt me rather than bother me financially. It hurt me in here because I was sticking up for this guy. When people were sort of slagging off travellers, I was saying, no, listen, they're not all the same. I do work for a traveller and he's spot on, you know. He always pays me on time. He always gives me a tip. He always buys me a few pints. You know, I've got nothing bad to say about the fella. Now, we got to the point where I'd done that many jobs for him and got to know him that well, you know, and I had plenty of laughs with him and good nights out with him and all that. He was like a friend of mine. You know, if he'd phoned me and said, I'm in trouble, I would have gone and helped him. Do you know what I mean? I genuinely viewed him as a friend, which is what hurt so much because the last job I did for him, a couple of £1,000, he insisted on giving me a couple of grand up front. I don't know why, he's never done that before, but he wanted to give me a couple of £1,000 up front. I've done the job for him, and at the end of the job, he ripped me off for £1,000. He phoned me up, nowhere to be seen, I couldn't find him. I've been round the house, I've been to his mother-in-law's house, everyone was gone, so whether they had gone travelling, I don't know. But he phoned me up and he told me quite clearly, I don't want to fall out with you, Kurt, but I'm not paying you. What? I couldn't believe it. I was like blown away. I was like, hang on a minute. What? What do you mean? He said, no, I'm worried in case the plaster might crack in the future and I need to keep that £1,000 to be able to pay another plasterer to patch it up. He's just spinning me a thing, but, you know, I'm blown away. I didn't know what to say. So, he basically, this is how it ended. Well, to this point anyway. I said to him, well, look, I'm not happy with this, mate, so we're going to have to sort this out, like, because there's only, I don't know if you know or not, but there's only really one way to sort things out with travellers, and that's man to man, or just roll over. He said he wanted his key back and he's going to send his missus round to pick it up. Now, I'd never told this man where I lived. Never told him where my address was. He's never been to my house. He told me my address. He said, I will send my wife to such and such address, and reeled off my home address. So in my mind, that's this man letting me know he knows where I live. I know where he lives. So I said, no, don't bother sending your missus round. I said, you come round. If you want to tell me my address, you come round and see me and we'll sort it out. Long story short, I've still got his key. It's somewhere. No one ever come round to me house. Now, I'll tell you how the conversation ended, but I'll tell you my morals as a man. I will not go to another man's house to cause violence, because that's where his wife and children are. And if somebody comes to my house to cause violence where my wife and children are, it wouldn't be a fight. I would want to kill you. So I would expect him to do the same. Now, I'm not prepared to die for £1,000. So, I don't see, I mean, he knows this anyway. We've spoken about things in the past. I'm not going to go to his house and kick off at his front door. But I did say to him on the phone, listen, one day me and you are going to bump into each other and we'll sort this out. Not the money, the principle of the fact that you think you can do this to me. I will meet you one day and we'll sort it. So, here's the mad thing. We actually bumped into each other. So where I live, in a village not too far away, at Christmas time, they have all these floats, these tractors come through with Christmas lights on the back of it. The street gets closed off, you know, it's shut down. And all these Christmas shows come through, and you take your missus and kids to go and see it. Now, I'm busting for the pee. You know, I'm desperate for a wee. And we're stood in the crowd watching all these floats go past, and I've turned around and said, I'm going to nip in that pub there and go and use the toilet. So I've gone in, and the pub is crammed full, like shoulder to shoulder, you know. And I'm ducking through, because I know where the toilets are. I'm trying to get through. And as I sort of like popped around one person, sorry mate, you know, watch your back there. And I've gone like that, and straight in front of me with 2 pints of lager is your man. Right? And this is about a year later. Now he knows that I'm ready to, you know, whenever we bump into each other, it's going to go off. And he's stood right in front of me with 2 pints of lager. And as I'm looking, he says my name, and I've just said his name. I'm being careful not to say names because it's not worth causing aggro if you don't have to. But as he said my name, he's looked over my shoulder. And because he's took his eyes off me and looked straight over my shoulder, I've made a stupid mistake. You should never take your eyes off your opponents. I've looked over my shoulder as well. Now, he could have just smashed a glass on the side of my head, but to be fair, he didn't. So I've looked over like that. And sat behind me is his missus and his 3 little tots, and they're all sat there. These little kids, I mean, they were little tots at the time. They're about, 8, 7, 5 and what have you. Just little kids. And they're all sat there with a little can of pop. They're all nicely dressed, all nice and smart. With little cans of pop and little packets of crisps in a little row, 3 of them, like little ducklings. And as I've looked back, he went, not today, eh? Now, I've got in my mind, there's his missus and kids sat right there, right? I've got my missus and kids outside, and this pub's packed. It's never going to be a fair fight. Nothing's ever going to be able to happen anyway. And what sort of a man would I be to sort of cause a ruckus now in front of this fella's missus and kids? And fair play to him as well, because he's by no means scared of violence himself. I said, yeah, fair enough. So I've ducked round him, I've gone the loo, finished in the loo, come back out again, and I'm aware now that he's had a bit of time to think, so something might happen. And as I'm sort of coming back through the pub trying to, clock where he is, I looked over to the table, and there's the 3 little cans of pop and the 3 little packets of crisps. They had made an exit and gone. So there you have it. I got ripped off by a traveller. And I'm still yet to bump into him, which I'm sure I will one day. So, but apart from that, yeah, there's the 3 times. Got carried away with a story then. Right, next question. Right, so I think I can talk about this because it's all done and dusted now. So what the situation was, I got took for a massive bill by the tax. Basically, my own fault. When I first got off the building sites, for a few years, I didn't have an accountant. It was you fill a self-assessment form in, and I basically assessed it myself. That's what it's called, a self-assessment. And I sort of assessed it, and leaned towards, my favour. Now, what happens with the taxes? This is a warning to you out there, and anyone that's sort of messing around with your tax returns, thinking you're diddling it and getting away with it. Nothing happened, right? So I've been putting tax returns in for a couple of years, and yeah, they're going through, and I haven't been fully. If I checked my accounts better than what I did when I self-assessed, I would have realised that I probably should have declared more money. I didn't purposely not pay the tax. I just didn't check as hard as I should have done. Okay? Let's just put it like that. And this has gone on for a few years. And then when I bought a house, my tax returns needed to be increased because I needed to be able to afford the mortgage. So the tax, obviously, the earnings for that year went up, and the next year went up. And then the year after, they went sort of back down again, because I got the mortgage. So what happened then was, a gentleman phoned me up from the Inland Revenue, Mr. Middleman, won't say his first name, in case I get in trouble again with him. He phoned me up and said, Kirk, we want to have a look at this year when it went up, we want to take a look at this year. It's okay, just come in and bring all your statements and everything for that year. So basically I'm getting investigated for this year now when my earnings have gone high. So I've gone in with all my gear, and he said, okay, this when your earnings have shot up, he said, you said you've earned this much. He said, but by looking at your bank accounts, he said, we can see that you've earned this much. Okay, he said, that's what I can prove on paper. He said, no, I'm not stupid. I know you've probably done some cash jobs as well. He said, but we're just going to stick to what we can prove on paper. This went on for about a year, by the way, back into, he said, so we know you've earned more. We can prove it. So you owe us like, I think it's like £4,000 or something extra in tax. Said, right, okay, yeah. The next thing was, he said, right, I'm just sort of paraphrasing because this is like conversation. If you've ever dealt with a tax, it's all like, you know, letters back and forth, and it's they investigate the whole of your life. It's flipping horrendous. Eh? It's like having MI5 flipping land in your flipping bank account. So they want to know the ins and outs of everything. So he said, you owe us this extra money. He said, Mr. Johnstone, what I think is that this extra amount, he said, I believe that you've probably earned this in previous years. He said, the furthest I can go back is 7 years. So I'm going to say that this is what you've earned for the last 7 years, and you've only declared these amounts and a little bit more, but, you know, it's this. Unless you can prove otherwise. And leaves it at that. That brings my tax bill to £31,000. So, I was like, wow, there we go. Goes to my accountant. My accountant goes through a load of things because I get an accountant at this point. This is sort things out, go and get an accountant. He takes a look through. He said, listen, you're probably going to open a can of worms. You'd be better off to just pay it. He said, I've looked at the other years, and let's just say that you could potentially end up paying more money. So just take the 31,000. Okay. In the meantime, taxman contacts me again and says, yeah, fine, okay, that's what we're going to go with. He said, now, the most I can fine you a year for sort of negligence is £1,000. I'm not going to fine you for this current year. And as I said to you, the furthest you can back is 7 years. But for the previous 6 years, I'm going to charge you £1,000 for each year, which brought me bill to £37,000. Now, what they do is, they're little scoundrels, they give you 12 months to pay it. I've heard, people have told me in the past that they pay over 2 years and you have longer to. I heard loads of stories. In my situation, I had 12 months to pay. Don't know if I was a special case, don't know, but that's what they give me. You've got 12 months to pay. And what they did is, which I thought was underhanded, by the way. So if there's any tax people watching this, I thought this was a little bit sneaky of you. What they did then was, I'm trying to get the money together, right? I've got some money in the bank. I had a little tiny bit of cash, you know, but I couldn't use that. You can't put cash through because where's that come from? You know, that opens another can of worms. So what I did was I had to obviously get money from somewhere. So I started looking into remortgaging my house because I'd paid a load of my mortgage off and get some cash out of the house. And then what happened then was, this is the bit that I think is a bit sneaky with the tax. I hadn't come to the end of the year, but they had already organised for me to be going to a bankruptcy court. Yeah, they were going to make me bankrupt to get this money off me so they could seize assets, right? Now, the 12 months weren't up, but they had started this process before the 12 months. So basically, by the end of the 12 months, my court date was then. Right? I would literally get 12 months straight in court the week after. Right? So they've already notified the courts. Now what the courts do, the bankruptcy courts, they get in touch with land registry and they put a charge against your house. So that meant I'm trying to get a remortgage to draw some money out to give these guys, you know, a bit of wallop so they can get off me back. And they put a charge against my house, which stopped the remortgage. So I phoned up and said, listen, you've literally just stopped me getting the money to pay you. Right. So this started to get a bit intense now because I don't want to go bankrupt. They basically didn't care on the phone, you know. They're just, I mean, most of the people that deal with the tax, they're just flipping robots, aren't they? You know, they're just trained to say what they're trained to say, and that's it. They don't think. So you don't get no sense out of them. Spoke to the investigator. All he does is says that they have said this and they have. I don't know who they are. You can never speak to them. You can only ever speak to the person. And he's saying it's not me, it's them. Right. Long story short, anyway, I had to get 20,000 quid together, within like a month. So I've decided, right, okay, the only thing I can do now is I'm not going to go down the route of getting personal loans and all this caper because I don't want the interest and what have you. I'm going to have to touch someone for 20 grand until I get all this sorted and pay them back. So, I was saying before about I've got 3 good friends. I've got, when you got friends, right? Different friends are good for different things, yeah? So if sort of shit hits the fan, I've got a friend here that I'll lean on and say, listen, I need a hand. I need, I've got to go and sort something. I mean, and he'll turn up and he's ready, and I'll do the same for him. I've got another friend there who's great with advice. Now, the first friend, he's no good for advice. He's good if you've got 10 men at your front door, he'll turn up, he'll come and get a good hiding, he's not bothered. But don't ask him for advice because he's no good with advice. I've got another friend who is very good with advice, and in the past, if I've been going down the wrong route or something, he's we'll go out and he'll quite bluntly put me straight on things, and he's a genuinely good fella, Lee. Now, I wanted to talk to Lee about this and just have a little chat, I wasn't too stressed about this, by the way. It's only money. We can always get more money. So I thought to myself, I could do having a little chat to Lee, get his thoughts on this whole situation, because everyone that I'm trying to get advice from is charging me money, solicitors want money, flipping accountants want money. I just want to have a chat to someone a bit older than me, Lee. He's like another 10 years on me. Thought I'll just have a little chat to Lee, see what his thoughts on it were. So to prompt him into a conversation, I texted him out the blue. I hadn't spoken to him for 5 or 6 months. That's how me and my mates are. I can go 3 years without seeing one of my mates. The minute we see each other, it's like we hadn't seen each other since yesterday. You just carry on. Anyway, I messages Lee. And to start the conversation, I just put on it a little joke, couldn't borrow me 20k, could you, mate? Thinking he would go, what's going on? And we'd get into the conversation, tell him what's going on, and, we'd chew the cud, have a few pints, and come up with a plan. So I've just texted him, couldn't borrow me 20k, could you, mate? The text message he sent me back was, send me your sort code, account number, and tell me the date you're going to pay me back. What more can you say? That's a friend, isn't it? So I wasn't expecting, I didn't know he had money lying around in his bank account like that, but as it so happens, that was the response I got. It was funny, actually. It was quite funny because, anyway, I phoned him up. We had a little chat on the phone, and I tried to explain to him, listen, Lee, what's going on? I've got this thing with the tax. And he said, Kirk, I'm not interested. I don't care. He said, you've asked me. He said, I know you wouldn't ask me if you didn't need it. He said, so the money's there. It's fine. Take it. Just tell me when you're going to give me back because I need the money for... he was planning on buying his own house and what have you, so he needed to put the money somewhere else later. And actually, I was more stressed trying to get the flipping money back to him than what I couldn't care about the tax man. Flipping, they can just go flipping run off and jump off a cliff. But I was genuinely stressed out trying to get that money back to him so he could buy his house. But what was funny was he sent me the money, but I was going on holiday 2 days later. So he sent the money over and he's messaged me a couple of days later and said, have you sorted it? Have you got on, like, sort of thing? Are you okay now? And I sent him a picture message back of literally me and my missus and kids all getting on an EasyJet flight, which must have made his heart sink momentarily, But yeah, anyway, what a good mate, eh? That's what you need in life, friends like that. So yeah, that was the tax all done and dusted. They got paid. They took a nice big bite out of me. I got the palaver of getting the charge lifted off my house, which, you have to phone the courts and speak to loads of more flipping people with pens. Flipping, they say don't need the pen's mightier than the sword. Flipping heck. You get these little vipers in your life that are a nightmare. You're trying to just talk logical sense to them. Listen, I paid them. Can you get this charge lifted off my house? Because my opportunity to get the remortgage is, we're running out of time, and I need to get this remortgage so I can get the money to give him his... Oh, it was stressful. Anyway, it all got done on it. It's all fine now. And my accountant that I now have every single year, I don't do any returns myself. He dots the I's and crosses the T's. He's on top of everything. Doesn't let me get away with absolutely anything. So I don't have to worry about that ever again. But yeah, that was an interesting time. So it's all done now. I don't mind talking about it. You know, it is what it is. But learn from my mistakes. Flipping heck, that didn't half hurt. That I had to give more of my savings at the time. Yeah, remortgage the house. I mean, fortunately, I'm back to where I was again now. You know, so it's like there's no sort of sting left. But it's a good story all the same, isn't it? Right, David Crawford has asked, are there any other trades you feel confident in? I'm aware that this video is dragging on a little bit, so we'll just nip this. This will be the last question. Other trades that I feel confident in. Okay, yeah, I mean, plastering is all I ever want to do. I don't want to do anything else. I've done other stuff. I've dipped my toe in other waters, but I just do plastering now. When I was serving my time, I sort of served me to, how can I explain this? I learned to plaster when I was a kid. Weekends, school holidays, I worked with my dad. You know, evenings, sometimes we even had days off school. Hey, shh, don't tell me mum. Used to sneak into jobs with my dad. You know, if he needed a hand, then I'd have a day off and go and get paid instead of going to school. Which, there's a whole lot of stuff we could go into about this. I mean, I won't be doing that to my son. I could see why my dad would do that, because he's trying to give me a trade. Anyway, let's just carry on. So I finished school 15. When I turned 16, I'm working on the building sites, but I don't just want to do plastering, you know. That's what my dad wanted me to do, but I wanted to do something else. I wanted to go in the army. I've been and done my selection. I got talked out of doing that. You know, I wanted to box for the army and stuff, but then what I wanted to just do anything apart from plastering, because I could already plaster by this point. I just wasn't very fast. So what we sort of agreed on was that I go and train to be an electrician. So at the time, I got the college course for free. A friend of the family, Sean, he was in college doing something else. He's about the same age as my dad, but he just kept getting other things, gas certificates and all sorts. So he got me in Borough Road College in Birkenhead. And I went and trained to be an electrician. I did my City and Guilds 236 Part 1 and 2. But I jibbed it off when it started going to the 3-phase stuff. And that all sort of coincides as well. Remember what I was saying before about, you know, when I went a little bit off the rails, I stopped going boxing, started going to pubs, started living a wild lifestyle, stopped going to college, carried on plastering. But yeah, I got to the point where, you know, I can rewire houses. I can't legally do it. I haven't got a certificate for this because I didn't stay and do the final exam and get all the testing and all that caper. I just learned the principles of it. So, I mean, two-way switch. Electricians will tell you, you know, two-way switching is about the most complicated thing you'll do, sort of in a domestic sort of situation. Consumer units, you know, I've got the knowledge. I can do all that. So, I don't ever want to work as an electrician, but I can do it. I mean, in my little workshop, I wired all this in. It's got a consumer unit just in the little toilet there. It's all separate to, you know, armoured cable into the house, separate sort of fuse board from the meter. So yeah, electrics I'm quite competent in, which comes in handy. If we have a little problem on a job, I know how to deal with it, you know. We trip the electrics out, I know how the RCD works and all that sort of caper. Now, it's a bit of a mad one. Because I could do plastering, I could do tiling. I learned all this with my dad, you know. I built this whole, you can only see here, but there's a big workshop sort of that way. Concrete floor. I did everything myself, you know. Yeah, I can hang doors and skirting boards. I've done every door in my house. I built stud walls and stuff. But I'll tell you what I did. Because I could do tiling and plastering and electrics, I ended up working with another fella, and I was plastering sort of bathrooms and kitchens for him. He's a bathroom and kitchen fitter, and he could sort of do electrics. And what he used to do was he'd do them and get his mate in to come and sign them off and turn the power back on, what have you. And we sort of teamed up because between us we could do everything. So for a couple of years I was doing kitchen and bathroom fitting with him. So yeah, I can route a worktops, I can put kitchens together. I mean, he's an excellent joiner, as Mark, fantastic, literally top of the range. We did. Who was he fitting for? Waterford and Freeman, a fella called Howard Freeman. They sort of did like bespoke handmade kitchens, you know, and put them in shipping containers and sent them to America. He did a bit of fitting for them. I mean, he genuinely is top of the range at kitchen fitting, but he can turn his hand to most things. So I ended up learning to plumb anyway. That's where I was going. I can fit bathrooms and stuff, you know. I understand all the different types of fittings, the different seals that you get, you know, on radiators, and people putting PTFE tape around flipping olive joints. You don't need PTFE tape. The olive seals it for anyone that, you know, is doing a bit of DIY. You know, but yeah, the hardest thing for the I can't fit boilers, but the hardest thing really, the skilled bit of plumbing was learning to solder. Sort of once you learn to solder, everything else you can basically learn from a textbook. Not knocking plumbers, by the way, you know, flipping, there's a lot more to it than that, but that was the hardest thing for me to sort of pick up, was the soldering technique. I'm digging myself a hole. There's going to be plumbers coming at me saying, no, you can't do this and you can't do that, you know. So yeah, I can do most stuff. That, I mean, once you sort of get a grasp for one sort of thing, it's plastering, I would say, is probably the hardest thing, because you're on a time limit. You mix the stuff, it's setting. Everything else, you know, if you're sort of like building a roof, say, well, you can just stop, can't you? Hang on, let's have a think about this. You can't do that with plastering. You've got to keep going because the stuff's going off. So what I'm trying to say is, if you've got the time, then there's nothing you can't really do. Just read books, watch YouTube videos, and you'll be able to do it. I mean, monkey see, monkey do. It's not hard, is it? You know, and if what's the worst that can happen? You have to phone someone up and say, come and help us do this, because I've cocked it up a little bit, you know. And you know, I've made plenty of little mistakes along the way, but I don't work in advertise. I don't want to do anything else. All I want on my van, the van's a sore subject, it's still in the garage. All I want on my little truck is one set of tools, plastering tools, that's it. I don't want to get involved with anything else. Plastering, I know exactly where I am. I'm not working late. I'm done for, you know, 3:30, 4 o'clock, and I'm back on my way again. So, but it's a long answer for a quick question, wasn't it? Now, I haven't got time for more questions, because I don't want to bore the flipping life out of you. But I did mention at the start of the video, today I was working for the GP, Tom, Dr. Tom, and a few people have asked me what I do for repetitive stress injuries, you know, bad wrists, tennis elbow, shoulder pain, neck pain and stuff. I don't really suffer with anything. I got a bad wrist years ago, and I downsized my trowel. Started using a smaller trowel, thinner trowel, and that got rid of my wrist pain. But I was speaking to Dr. Tom, and potentially, if he goes for it, we might do a little section where he comes on and tells you, because he's a real GP, he'll give you some advice on, you know, how to not get tennis elbow, or how to deal, I don't know. He's going to give you this GP flipping spout on it. I don't know. I don't suffer with anything, so I can't really speak on these subjects, but he can. He deals with it all the time, so he's going to come on and give you his verdict on what you should do, and stretching and exercises and what have you, to deal with all that sort of stuff. Right, there's no more time for any more questions. That's enough. We've done an hour. I start a K-Rend job tomorrow, so there will be videos coming on K-Rend. I'll start working on those tomorrow. Guys, if you've enjoyed the video and you appreciate the advice I've given you, and you enjoy listening to me, there's a link in the description. You can buy me a beer to say cheers. Much appreciated. Apart from that, guys, it's been a pleasure. I love you. Ciao.